training course. Port Facility Security Officer. Prepared and conducted by Maritime Bureau of Africa, MBA. For certification and tuition inquiries, please contact MBA by email, director@mbaclass.co.za, or phone +277 2567 0010. Chapter 2. Security Responsibilities. 2.1. Contracting Governments, Flag and Port Administrations, Responsibility. Port States. The term, port state, is used to identify those nations that have commercial maritime ports, that are subject to regulatory oversight by the national government. The term is used primarily for those activities that govern the oversight of foreign ships in a nation's territorial waters. The term is also specifically relevant, as it specifies the duties of nations signatory to international codes, treaties, and other agreements. There is no correlation between the importance of seaports and the level of robustness of the country's fleet. Many of the countries, where the world's largest seaports are located, have small fleets, and many of the largest fleets in the world are registered in countries with small or no seaports. For example, the 5 largest flag registries and the 5 largest maritime trading countries are largely mutually exclusive, as noted below. The 5 largest flag registries are Panama, Liberia, Marshall Islands, Hong Kong, Greece. The 5 largest cargo ports, by cargo volume, were Singapore, Shanghai, China, Rotterdam, Netherlands, Tianjin, China, Ningbo, China. Regulatory requirements. Even though ships registered in different countries have legal status as territory of the flag state, the fact that they move around the world and enter the territorial seas of port states means that port states are able to impose regulatory requirements on those ships and enforce international requirements, to which the flag state is signatory. Port states vary in the level of regulatory enforcement they exercise over foreign vessels. Countries in the developed world tend to have well-developed port state regulatory frameworks that allow for the enforcement of international treaties and codes and national regulations pertinent to security. 2.2. Ship owners, managers and operators. The Company Security Officer, CSO. Ship's Masters and Ship Security Officer, SSO. Ship's personnel with specific security duties. Duties and responsibilities are described in details in MBA SSO/CSO training course. Company responsibilities, SOLAS Chapter 11-2 Regulation 4, Requirements for companies and ships. 1. Companies must comply with the relevant requirements in Chapter 11-2 of SOLAS and in Part 2 of the ISPS Code, taking into account the guidance given in Part B of the ISPS Code. 2. Ships must comply with the relevant requirements in Chapter 11-2 of SOLAS and in Part A of the ISPS Code, taking into account the guidance given in Part B of the Code. Compliance shall be verified and certified as provided for in Part 2 of the ISPS Code. 3. Prior to entering a port and while in a port within the territory of a contracting government, a ship must comply with the requirements for the security level set by that contracting government, if such security level is higher than the security level set by the administration for that ship. 4. ships must respond without undue delay to any change to a higher security level. 5. Where a ship is not in compliance with the requirements in Chapter 11-2 of SOLAS and in Part A of the ISPS Code, or cannot comply with the requirements of the security level set by the administration or by another contracting government and applicable to that ship, then the ship shall notify the appropriate competent authority prior to conducting any ship-port interface or prior to entry into port, whichever occurs earlier. Regulation 5, Specific Responsibility of Companies. 1. The company shall ensure that the master has available on board, at all times, information through which officers duly authorized by a contracting government can establish. 2. Who is responsible for appointing the members of the crew or other persons, currently employed or engaged on board the ship in any capacity on the business of that ship? A. Who is responsible for deciding the employment of the ship? B. In cases where the ship is employed under the terms of charter, who are the parties to the charter? ISPS Code Part A, Section 6, Obligations of the company, important for PFSO as well. 1. The ship security plan must contain a clear statement emphasizing the master's authority. The company shall establish in the ship security plan that the master has the overriding authority and responsibility to make decisions, with respect to the security of the ship, and to request the assistance of the company or of any contracting government as may be necessary. 2. The company shall ensure that the company security officer, the master and the ship security officer are given the necessary support to fulfill their duties and responsibilities, in accordance with Chapter 11-2 of SOLAS and Part A of the ISPS Code. The Company Security Organization. Overview. 1. The company is responsible for setting the security policy and schemes for the ships it operates. Such schemes must conform to international and domestic requirements, but they should also reflect the company's objectives in maintaining safety and security on board its vessels, wherever they operate. The elements of a ship security scheme should include the following. A. Company Security Officer, CSO, an individual in the company, who is responsible for developing and implementing the company's security measures. B. Ship Security Assessment, SSA, a risk-based analysis of security-related hazards or threats for each ship the company operates. The SSA should address the particulars of the ship, its cargoes and crew, and the locations where it will operate. It should also consider the likelihood of various security-related scenarios and possible responses to those scenarios. C. Ship Security Plan, SSP, a ship-specific document based on the SSA that identifies equipment, measures, and procedures that are to be employed to maintain security on board a ship. The plan must address specific measures appropriate to the level of security specified by the government or company. D. Ship Security Officer, SSO, an individual on board each ship who is responsible for ensuring that the SSP is implemented at all times while the ship is underway and in port. The SSO is also responsible for ensuring that the SSP is maintained up to date, and that the ship's crew is trained and familiar with their security-related duties. The SSO is the primary point of contact between the ship and the port facility security officer, located in each port that the ship visits. Other ship owner or operator responsibilities. Participation on port security committees. recognized security organizations' involvement, alternative security agreements equivalent, security arrangements, changing security levels, declarations of security, ship security personnel, ship security alert systems, automatic identification systems, pre-arrival information, long-range identification and tracking systems, ship security assessments, ship security plans, shore leave and access to shore-based facilities by seafarers, reporting security incidents, maintaining on-board records, international ship security certificates, control and compliance measures, guidelines for non-SOLAS vessels. Shipping companies are required to ensure that each ship security plan clearly states the master's overriding authority to make decisions with respect to the safety and security of the ship, request assistance from the company or governments as may be necessary. CSOs, ships masters and their SSOs are given the necessary support to fulfill their duties and responsibilities. Approval and retention of each ship security assessment. Masters have information on board that allows authorized government officials to establish who is responsible for appointing crew members or other persons on board their ship to duties on the ship, who is responsible for deciding the employment of the ship, who are the parties to any charter that the ship is employed under. The CSO and SSO must maintain contact with the Port Facility Security Officer, PFSO, so that all parties understand the security condition of the ship and port facility, that security is maintained while the ship is in port, and that all parties understand and are capable of taking what additional security measures are necessary if the security level changes while the ship is in port. The duties and responsibilities of the company security officer shall include, but are not limited to: a. Advising the level of threats to be encountered by the ship, using appropriate security assessments and other relevant information. b. Ensuring that ship security assessments are carried out. c. Ensuring the development, submission for approval, and thereafter the implementation and maintenance of the ship security plan. d. Ensuring that the ship security plan is modified, as appropriate, to correct deficiencies and satisfy the security requirements of the individual ship. e. Arranging for internal audits and reviews of security activities. f. Arranging for the initial and subsequent verifications of the ship, by the administration or the recognized security organization. g. Ensuring that deficiencies and non-conformities, identified during internal audits, periodic reviews, security inspections and verifications of compliance, are promptly addressed and dealt with. h. Enhancing security awareness and vigilance. I. Ensuring adequate training for personnel responsible for the security of the ship. j. Ensuring effective communication and cooperation between the ship security officer and the relevant port facility security officers. k. Ensuring consistency between security requirements and safety requirements. l. Ensuring that, if sister ship or fleet security plan are used, the plan for each ship reflects the ship-specific information accurately. m. Ensuring that any alternative or equivalent arrangements approved for a particular ship or group of ships are implemented and maintained. Ships personnel with specific security duties, entry checkpoint personnel, technicians and electricians maintaining security equipment, search personnel. 2.3. The Port Facility Security Officer, PFSO. Port facility personnel with specific security duties. The Port Facility Security Officer, FSO, is the point person for planning and managing the security function. ISPS code defines Port FSO as the person designated as responsible for the development, implementation, revision and maintenance of the Port FSP and for liaison with the ship security officer and company security officer. The FSO may assign security duties to other facility personnel. However, the FSO retains the responsibility for these duties. PFSO must have general knowledge, through training or equivalent job experience, in security organization of the facility, general vessel and facility operations and conditions, vessel and facility security measures, including the meaning and requirements of different maritime security, MARSEC, levels, emergency preparedness, response, and contingency planning, security equipment and systems, and their operational limitations and methods of conducting audits, inspections, control, and monitoring techniques. The PFSO must also have knowledge of and receive training in relevant international laws and codes, and recommendations, relevant government legislation and regulations, responsibilities and functions of local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, security assessment methodology, methods of facility security surveys and inspections, instruction techniques for security training and education, including security measures and procedures, handling sensitive security information and security-related communications, current security threats and patterns, recognizing and detecting dangerous substances and devices, recognizing characteristics and behavioral patterns of persons who are likely to threaten security, techniques used to circumvent security measures, conducting physical searches and non-intrusive inspections, conducting security drills and exercises, including exercises with vessels, and assessing security drills and exercises. PFSO is responsible for the following: ensure that a facility security assessment, FSA, is conducted. Ensure the development and implementation of an PFSP. Ensure that an annual audit is conducted and, if necessary, that the PFSA and the PFSP are updated. Ensure that the PFSP is exercised. Ensure that regular security inspections of the facility are conducted. Ensure the security awareness and vigilance of the facility personnel. Ensure adequate training to personnel performing facility security duties. Ensure that occurrences that threaten security of the facility are recorded and reported to the owner or operator. Ensure the maintenance of required records. Ensure the preparation and submission of any required reports. Ensure the execution of any required declarations of security with the Vessel Security Officer, VSO. Ensure the coordination of security services in accordance with the approved PFSP. Ensure that security equipment is properly operated, tested, calibrated, and maintained. Ensure the recording and reporting of attainment changes in MARSEC levels to the owner or operator and the National Security Organization. When requested, Ensure that the VSOs receive assistance in confirming the identity of visitors and service providers seeking to board the vessel through the facility. Ensure notification, as soon as possible, to law enforcement personnel and other emergency responders, to permit a timely response to any transportation security incident. Ensure that the PFSP is submitted to the National Security Organization for approval, as well as any plans to change the facility or facility infrastructure prior to amending the PFSP. Ensure that all facility personnel are briefed of changes in security conditions at the facility. PF personnel with specific security duties, entry checkpoint personnel, technicians and electricians maintaining security equipment, search personnel, CCTV monitoring personnel, physical barriers maintenance personnel. Other personnel having specific security duties should have sufficient knowledge and ability to perform their assigned duties, including, as appropriate, Part B 13.3 ISPS Code. 1. Knowledge of current security threats and patterns. 2. Recognition and detection of weapons, dangerous substances and devices. 3. Recognition on a non-discriminatory basis of characteristics and behavioral patterns of persons who are like to threaten security. 4. Techniques used to circumvent security measures. 5. Crowd management and control techniques. 6. Security-related communications. 7. Knowledge of the emergency procedures and contingency plans. 8. Operations of security equipment and systems. 9. Testing, calibration and, whilst at sea, maintenance of security equipment and systems. 10. Inspection, control and monitoring techniques. 11. Methods of physical searches of persons, personal effects, baggage, cargo and ship's stores. 2.4. Other security personnel. Port facility management may employ the third-party security, armed or unarmed, personnel. They act in accordance with written contract in continuous communications with PFSO. All other port facility personnel should have sufficient knowledge of, and be familiar with relevant provisions of the SSP, including, Part B 13.4 ISPS Code. 1. The meaning and the consequential requirements of the different security levels. 2. Knowledge of the emergency procedures and contingency plans. 3. Recognition and detection of weapons, dangerous substances and devices. 4. Recognition, on a non-discriminatory basis, of characteristics and behavioral patterns of persons who are considered apt to threaten security. 5. Techniques used to circumvent security measures. End of Chapter 2 audio file.